What's up, everybody? I'm Adam. You're watching the Model Aviator channel. In this week's Quick Look Fun Flight episode, we'll be checking out the KAVAN Alpha 1500mm version 2. We got this from FPV Builds RC. Anthony and Jackie were kind enough to send this one to us. They are the sole importers for KAVAN models here in the States. Now, the Alpha's been around for a little bit. It's in the compact glider category. They're easier to store and transport. They glide well. But we thought we'd take a look at this one from the aspect of an aerobatic sport plane because they're also really good at that. While the Alpha is in the compact powered glider category, it still has a 1500mm or almost a 60-inch wingspan, yet it comes in at well under 2 pounds ready to fly. So flying this airplane at a decent sized park or schoolyard is absolutely doable. You just need to be aware of the laws governing flying models wherever you live. Now, KAVAN lists this on their website as an ARF. On the FPV Builds RC website, it's listed as a plug and play because that's actually what it is. All the electronic bits are pre-installed, motor, ESC, and servos. You only need to choose the radio protocol and put your receiver of choice in the airplane yourself. It's a 4-channel airplane out of the box. You have elevator, rudder, ailerons, and throttle control. You might need some extra channels depending upon what you choose to do. If you're using a gyro stabilizer, some of those require a channel, and if you want to isolate the ailerons, you can program flaperons or spoilerons with those if you want to. It comes in this black paint scheme as well as this blue one. The Alpha has a lot of features that I personally like to see in a powered glider. The paint scheme is very attractive and there's a lot of contrast to differentiate between top and bottom. When you get it on up there, the foam cells are very tight and compact, which makes it slick and aerodynamic, which improves efficiency for gliding. And of course, like any good powered glider, it has a foldable prop that tucks back out of the way when you're gliding. It even has a set of day-bright LEDs on each wing, and it is a convenient top loader with a magnetic hatch. There's plenty of room in that battery bay for the recommended size pack, which is a 3-cell 1300. When it comes to assembly, it could not be simpler. The manual does a great job of taking you through the steps of assembly, and unlike some KAVAN manuals that I've seen, this one, like all the others, is multilingual, but they have the illustrations and the assembly instructions all on the same page for every language, so that is a bit more convenient. There are 2 screws for the wing and 2 screws for the tail. That's it. The only other thing you have to do, obviously, is install your receiver of choice. There's a couple of options. You could install it in the hatch towards the back, or you could install it underneath the wing, which is where we chose to put it. We used an AR620, just a regular non-AS3X sports Spectrum receiver because we fly Spectrum, and airplanes like this don't quote-unquote need a gyro. Not that it will hurt to use one if you want to, but it doesn't need it to fly well, so we just put a regular airframe setup on it and enjoyed it that way. Now, the only other thing that I can talk about when it comes to the assembly, it does come with this plastic skid plate that you can cut out and glue to the bottom of the airplane for belly landing. This adds a little bit of weight. Your really serious glider purists will say, oh my gosh, don't add any weight. I think for most people, adding this is not going to hurt at all, but if you don't want to put this on, you can do what I did and just use clear Scotch tape on the bottom. Makes a nice little skid plate for landing this thing in the grass or on a geotextile runway, and if that wears, you just put some more tape over it or pull the old tape up and put new tape where that was. So pretty simple and very light for you glider purists. When it comes to setup, ours is pretty simple since we don't have any gyro settings. We're just using a regular AR620 receiver. There's not a whole lot to it. When it comes to our push rod placement in the control horns, we are in the outermost hole on the ailerons, and we're in the center of 3 holes on both the elevator and the rudder to give us just a touch more throw back there. We're at 100% rates and 15% expo on aileron, 20% expo on elevator, and 15% expo on rudder. This is our battery position, and that gives us a balance point of 50 millimeters measured with the airplane right side up from the very leading edge of the wing at the root. That's a little bit forward of where the manual suggests, but it worked out for us, especially considering that we wanted to fly it more as a sport aerobat than a glider. Now, keep in mind, you can isolate those ailerons, give them their own channels in your receiver, and you can program flaperons or spoilerons or both, and that's not a bad idea. I had a great time flying the Alpha. We flew it on 3 different packs, some old Venom 3-cell 1300s, some Spectrum 3-cell 1300s, and some HRB 3-cell 1500s. You could fit a 3-cell 2200 in this airplane. You have to put a little bit further back to get the balance right, but you can get it in there. And if you want to do what we did with it and fly it as a sport aerobat, that's going to be fine. Obviously, if you want to take advantage of it as a glider, you're going to want a lighter pack and as light an airplane as you can get. We're impressed with the glide ratio. Experienced glider pilots will be able to slope soar this thing or thermal soar it all day long, but I love the multi-roll aspect of it. It's very aerobatic and fun to fly, to power on as an aerobat. It's got some little NACA on either side here with an exit hole underneath to keep airflow over the ESC and the battery. So even though we were in the power a lot more than you normally would be if you're using it as a glider, we had no overheating issues. And worth noting, there's room to mechanically adjust the aileron, elevator, and rudder and get even more throw. If you want to make it a more aggressive aerobat, you could do that. Now, one thing I will say about flying this airplane, when it comes to landing it, being a glider, it is a floater. If you're in a tight area and you're trying to hit a specific spot, to be able to do that, you're going to have to get used to doing a very low approach, or do what we were talking about earlier, isolate those aileron servos and program in flaperons and spoilerons, see which one kills the airfall the most and enables you to put it on the spot you want. It'd be a lot easier to land in a specific spot if you do that. And worth noting, when you belly land this airplane, there are covers on the servo arms and push rods for the ailerons, as well as skids on both wing tips to keep from boogering those up if you're landing on like a geotextile runway the way that we did. And when it comes to skill level, it's a very easy airplane to fly with the right receiver, something like SAFE, or with a good instructor. A beginner could easily get started with an airplane like this. I am a trainer aircraft purist. I think that everybody's first RC trainer should have landing gear so that you learn to taxi, take off, land, as well as all aspects of flying an airplane. But this absolutely would make a good first airplane if it's set up the right way for the right person. Now, when it comes to the price point, the KAVAN airplanes are a little bit more expensive. This one is more on the economical side of the price range. These things come from the Czech Republic. Only place to get it is from Anthony and Jackie at FPV Builds RC. We'll put a link in the description where you can go straight there and check one of these things out. We'll also put a link to KAVAN in Europe. So if you live there, you can check it out there. Of all the airplanes on the KAVAN website and on FPV Builds RC, everyone we've flown is really good and certainly worth having, and we think worth the money. But this one is probably the most bang for the buck, given the 2 different roles you can enjoy with it for the price. So be sure and check it out if you'd like to add one to your hangar. And if you go through that links, it lets them know that you like what we're doing. And when you do that, we appreciate it. Thank you very much. So up next is the Fun Flight demo. Enjoy that, and we'll see you next time. The flight you're seeing here is, I think, my third flight with the Alpha. On the maiden flight, I had a little bit of a throttle to up elevator mix on a switch for hand launching. After hand launching it several times, it turns out it doesn't need that. You just throttle up and it flies right out of your hands. Here, of course, we're power off, and I'm setting up to fly the length of our runway. It's 400 feet long, and as you can see, I'm at one end here, going all the way down to the other end, and it almost doesn't lose any altitude at all. Pretty decent glide ratio. The Alpha is capable of most sport aerobatics, and the nice thing about doing them with a glider like this is you can dive in and glide through maneuvers, or you can just take advantage of the motor and fly it like a normal sport plane. The Alpha is perfectly comfortable in inverted flight and surprisingly doesn't require much down elevator to maintain it. One of the really nice things about using the Alpha for something like this is that under power, the trim doesn't change over your trim for gliding unless you're at absolute full throttle, and then you have to compensate with a little bit of down elevator. It's very stable and decently precise. We had a little bit of wind, and the fact that we're not using a gyro didn't adversely affect it at all, really. Ladders are inherently stable as it is, but it's easy to get so locked into using gyros that you forget how to tune an airframe without one. Every now and then it's nice to just leave it out of something and just tune the pure airframe to remind yourself how to do it. Something a lot of people don't know about tuning gyros: if you learn how to tune an airframe and you get the best out of the airframe first, and then you use the gyro to put the cherry on top of the sundae, those are some of the best tuned airplanes with the gyro you'll ever fly. I really think flaperons or spoilerons will make landing this airplane easier. Without it, this is what I had to do to bring it in close to my spot. Get it really slow, do a very low approach, and then I can come close. And even here, I mean, it looks like I should easily be able to set it down in front of me. And I do, but I'm forcing it, and look how far down the runway I go. On this approach, I'm going to get it a little closer to my feet. We had a great time flying the Alpha. It's a great multi-role model, whether you want to fly it as a glider or a sport aerobat. It can deliver on both. That's it for us. Take care of yourselves. Happy flying. We'll see you next week with something cool with wings.